Okay. My mother always tells me that all of those titles before your name will not do anything unless you're prepared, and I am not prepared. This is frightening. Uh, I should say that there's one book that comes right after the one that you held up, isn't it? Yeah, inscribing my name. And it's called The Shape of Regret. And I have it here, and it's, I think, in red. I'm colorblind, so I can't quite tell. Uh, but what I will do is I'm going to take a note from Joy and read you uh, to to the memory of the 10 million. How shall I regret? How shall I regard these humiliations, these human punishments against the lives of so many who were counted and numbered on their arms so that their captors would know who and what they were, if not by their family names given them by their fathers and mothers? We had scribes who were able to tell the stories of our lives, but never like the terrors which haunt sleep and the imagination. These are the dreams that make you sleepwalk, that make you turn and turn in the absence of reality, looking for a presence that has been gassed into final memory, or that is what you hold on to or gravitate towards, because dreams are redemptive and are the history that each of us shall tell to our surviving children when we shall trust ourselves to create and come unwittingly to love someone beyond ourselves or construct a more civil way to survive. What I would say is most of these poems come from the pandemic, since they've locked us in our house and we can only get out. Um, so I am really struggling now to revise old poems and poems that seemed almost finished but never quite got the right mood. And so I've gone back and I've revised, I would say maybe 2 dozen pieces, out of which half of them have found homes. And so I'm, on the one hand, happy that the pandemic has forced me to do something that I was a little bit too lazy to try and do anyway. But here's something called The History of Place. I want to open up my skin, unzip it from muscle and skeleton, flay it left and right, up and down, until we have a specimen that can be stuffed while the muscles reveal a map pointing to territories that have been mapped out and leading to foreign destinations. Who among us ever take these directions seriously? Only men and women, scholars who are born to give attention to the history of place. What I'm listening to is all sorts of things, poets who keep sort of interrupting and telling me something else comes next. So I'm going to read you this poem. You can tell is influenced by William Carlos Williams, that I had a small, brief correspondence with. Dear Bill, after William Carlos Williams, this is just to say that Hurricane Ike denuded the oak and white birch trees that stood on both sides of our house. The bark and leaves and limbs decapitated, blossoms laid waste on the city's best piece of landscape, which forced me to abandon all the foods I had hoarded for the future. In all the items I have saved, there is not one single piece of fresh fruit, and certainly no plums. Thank you. Mutability. Sometimes I sprinkle salt on a peach or a plum, and the luscious sweetness attaches itself to the flesh of the fruit, and all the sourness of what I have begun to ingest disappears. Apology. These are from three poems after Lucille Clifton. Apology. The day is filled with random apologies, socially polite greetings, which we offer to white people as real substance, testifying who we truly are, because they are given to thinking faultily that we are miserable enough not to know how to apologize for the painful afflictions their fathers cast upon our fathers, but we are dressed in truth and wear it faithfully. Um, Here's a poem that I wrote a long time ago. It's an old poem, not revised. And it's about my mother and my having to deal with her dying and God only knows what all else, including one or two lawyers that the hospital insisted that I talk with so that I guess so that they could get rid of us. At any rate, so I wrote this poem, My Mother at the End of Her Days. My mother at the end of her days could not see to sign her name on the dotted line. She could write her name. It was the line that caused trouble. She had a sweet name I cannot deny. So many communal ancestors died trying to learn how to write. How could impatient haste deny her the opportunity to honor those dead she would soon face? I was not the best counselor in those failing days. Time for the banker was golden and mighty. Still, he could not afford her the time it took to place her name on the dotted line the law required. She was forced to set down slavery's strong X. With those two improper strokes, all of her joys were denied. I wept that act set a longing in her heart and took from her hand an accomplished task she had learned long ago. I am far from that clinical day and the impolite act I was forced to commit against a love removed and dying aggressively of cancer. Um, Black Moses. Black Moses immigrated toward opportunity. He walked with a staff of suspicious talents. The seeds of grief were in its grain. His hands waved to brighten ghettos. With a gazelle, well, he moved with a gazelle's anticipation. A sharp African wind cloaked his sides. His life was ordinary. He was dressed in a robe immaculately red and black. North Americans would have been astonished by the brilliance of its colors. He was assassinated by the mystery born of that staff. Sometimes these are so sad that I can now understand why no one published. Anyway. Um, I was born in Alabama, and we left in the late 40s. And the black porter came through and said, "We just crossed the Mason and Dixie line." And I was 12 years old, and I said to myself, "And that's that." And strange enough, I didn't look back at Birmingham or anybody that I was related to or any of those experiences. I think probably for a good 30 years. And then suddenly something said, open the door, and out came a lot of these poems. Remembering Birmingham, one. At night, when the wind rubbed its naked body against the flimsy boards where we lived our ineffectual lives, our parents told ghost stories around the fat-bellied stove that heated the rooms where we sat in the evenings lighted by that stove. We were frightened by the memories of relatives who had refused to go with death in spite of destiny and segregation. Those spirits made us shudder in the drafts while we promised to be obedient, but we had no answers we could offer to the dead that would or could explain our circumstances. In those long ago days, there was something truly to be afraid of. Given time, only we and that emotion would change. Then we came to Ohio, and strangely enough, after teaching in Michigan, I got a job in Ohio. And ironically, I wasn't supposed to come to Dayton, Ohio, but I did it because I was so tired. I just put the map open and closed my eyes and pointed to it, and my hand landed on Dayton, Ohio. And the rest, as many of you know, is history. So I came upon this piece. It's called Thinking About Flight. Those two Wright brothers were more than Icarus, than we could believe. We like to think the best of our past, remembering only with affection Icarus, who first achieved flight and in the process forgot the rest of his contenders. It has never mattered who takes second or third place, since history is only going to remember the face of him or her who took first place and stood in the center of the photograph. Most likely, the other achievers will be slightly out of focus with no identifying name. History has only to do with those individuals who dare and fly too high or too close to the edge of the known universe. We who are survivors of Icarus take our warnings seriously. Whoever takes the screws and bolts of his father's imagination, like Mozart, or to a lesser degree, the Bach sons, can easily take wind and space and hold them in an affectionate embrace longer than a quarter of an hour, which is a test of our faulty human memories. Am I out of time?
Impossible, impossible. Continue on, please.
Bless your heart. Music is in the ripples in the air. A man lies dead in the uncollected refuse. His dead left hand reaches out like the beggar he was. That hand begs for a ride in a direction we will not go. He no longer has shoes on. They are gone now. They protect the feet of someone else. The sun burns his tattered feet, his remains, and he, or where he fell, he sours the air. Whoever passes this way is aware of his democratic notions. They are a poison that eats away the nerves. What follows is a numbness. It makes its promise to the dust of the future. And I think We had a bird that flew into one of our picture windows and left his impression on the window, and it bothered me for a while. So I tried to write this poem. Watching from the picture window, in the soft of the evening, light declines. A deer and his family arrives. They devour the blooms of lilies. The plants have not given birth to fruit or vegetables. Their stalks are no longer tasty. These animals forage for what is left and search for what is surprising.
That the message is that what that one means, Sam?
Say that again.
It's okay. Somebody just became unmuted, Herb. You're
Oh.
good.
I thought that was a question for me.
You never know
Okay.
what's going to happen.
I don't know.
That's part of the fun.
Well, that's good. My tongue's not working tonight. Sharecropper's record, or how my guitar got its name, Lucille, in memory of B.B. King. Late one night, a mean wind howled through the slats of a wooden tavern which we played in. A bucket of kerosene burned slowly in the corner. The room was warm. Two men argued and fought over a woman. She danced in the magnificent hall down the street. She was swift as light. Her skin glistened. Her dance conjured and hypnotized everyone. Her spirit was secure. A tight sailor's knot held them. Struggle knocked over the pain. Instantly, the tavern burned. The building was a matchbox. Fire ate the slats of wood like dry white bread. We ran for our lives. Outside, I remembered my guitar sitting on stage alone. I rescued it while the building was engulfed. A single breath of air drifted by and collapsed around me. I learned that the girl the men had fought over was named Lucille. That is the name I gave my precious guitar to remind me never to be foolish about any woman. I was supposed to laugh at that.
Everyone's laughing. You just can't
Yeah,
hear us, Herb. We're all laughing.
That's okay.
We're laughing.
And I think I should, well, I remembered how influential Edith Sitwell was many, many years ago when I was growing up. And I tend to think, God forbid and protect me, that she probably was the first rapper in English. Black people are going to be upset with me, but that's all right. Go back and listen to some early Facade poems that she wrote with William Walton. And I think when they premiered the piece, it was so outrageous that they huddled in their dressing rooms until all of the patrons at the concert had left the hall because they were afraid that they were going to be mobbed and killed or something. At any rate, an English street vendor's poem to Edith Sitwell. Edith Sitwell, does she sit well with her classical, well-trained mind? Yes, Dame Sitwell, quite well, sits well on her pinnacle far from hell. There she nourishes and she flourishes with her cry, good poems to sell. And I think this is it. Poem, Outside the Gate. I no longer hope to get into heaven. I want a chair placed outside the gate that will do. That will do very well. Only the simple dead attain heaven. Do not ask how I know this. Their activity is their just reward. A chair will do me just fine. I do not seek the comfort of heaven. The dead will receive their promise one by one as a carriage drives them into rest. If the good you accomplished was not purposeful, and the generous amount of what you said and did was bad, then you are left hopeless and sad. So you see why a simple chair will do me fine, since I have no purposeful good behind, and I have left no purposeful good behind. There are many who are still seeking lasting eternity. I simply seek a reserved chair placed comfortably outside the gate. I promise not to arrive late. And thank you very much. You're very kind to put up with this.